uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I could tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. Phone number is 888-659-3727. As you can see, I have a special guest in-house today. You know him. We do. Sorry, Joe. I'm sorry I didn't include you as being the co-host of this broadcast. By the way, before let me introduce Joe Tillman, because I know that he likes to get introduced first. Joe Tillman is the original hair transplant mentor.
Thank you.
He has a bit of an ego at times. Guys, phone number 888-659-3727. Listen, you guys know him as Dr. Ken Anderson, IAHS accepted member. But he's also the founder and director of the Anderson Center for Hair in Atlanta. He's a triple board certified facial plastic surgeon who's specialized in hair restoration for well over 2 decades. One of the first guys to really do the largest case FUE back in the day. And he happens to be John Cena's hair transplant surgeon. So I know a lot of you guys wanted to speak to him, maybe get a little insight, a little bit of the skinny on what's happening with Cena, how that transpired. So we can talk about that. Again, the phone number is 888-659-3727. Ken, welcome to the broadcast, brother.
Thank you very much, Spencer. It's always great to be here in Beverly Hills with you. And Joe, how you doing, man?
Doing fantastic.
Good to
Great to have you here. And I think it's worth noting that Dr. Ken also was the surgeon on the very first documented FUE surgery that was the basis of the first paper about FUE surgery. It wasn't the first FUE ever, because that credential goes to Dr. Ray Woods. But Dr. Anderson did the surgery that was a focus of the first paper by Bernstein and what's his name? Back in.
I'm sure that Ken doesn't mind me saying this, but let's face it. Raspin couldn't do it himself. Ken was a young guy. He's like, listen, take this punch. Let's see what you can do. And Ken was able to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first published case report, I guess you could say, 2004.
Yeah. And just sorry to interrupt, but some people are already commenting in the chat room. The sound for Dr. Anderson is not 100%. There's a technical difficulty with that, so we're aware of that.
What did he say? What are they saying in the chat room?
Can barely hear Ken, and Dr. Ken's mic is not working.
Yeah, I was working through the phones. Let me see if I can try to somehow figure this out while we are. Worst case scenario, Ken may have to sit next to me.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
That really would be interesting.
That'd be cozy.
Yeah. So like I told you guys, I kind of had to refigure this when Ken was coming, and I thought that I found all the right wiring and all that stuff, but my staff in New York was not around today, so we couldn't figure that out. But I think there may be a workaround. So let me see what I can do here. Anyway, guys, feel free to give us a call, 888-659-3727. Worst case scenario is that Joe's going to have to do a little bit of a tap dance for a while, and I'll figure out the microphone situation.
Oh, I can tap dance. Oh, can I? Absolutely. I'm just modifying my lights here right now. So, Ken, what are you in town for, by the way? Like, what brought you to LA? Is there a conference of some sort?
No, I'm here for this podcast.
You came You
Listen,
flew all the way.
He came all the way for this podcast, and no one
this.
could even hear him. Think about that shit.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
great
that's
to see
VIP
Spencer.
for you.
It's great to see Spencer, and I first 10 years of my career I practiced in Beverly Hills, so get to see some friends.
Oh, that's nice.
I go play hockey. I'm a Canadian. I play roller hockey on the beach.
Okay.
On the parking lots below the Santa Monica Bluffs, there are roller hockey games. There are guys from upstate New York, Minnesota, Russia, Finland, Sweden, Canada. And,
oh, wow.
So we have some good games out there. The restaurants in LA are, obviously different than the ones in Atlanta. And so it's a nice trip to make out here to see some friends and, of course, to see Spencer and spend some time with you guys.
Well, nice. No, it's good that you're doing it for the sake of leisure, because traveling all the time is like I've done that. No thanks. So
Yeah, and I
good.
have about I go to about 4 or 5 medical conferences a year, to contribute and to the meeting and present
Right.
papers. I was at the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery earlier in Tampa, and then I'll be in Vegas for the Vegas Cosmetic Surgery meeting. I'm going to be the session chair and moderator for the whole hair transplant surgery section of that meeting, and then there's, of course, I'm going to be in Rio later for the ISHRS meeting.
Right.
But these are
Okay.
it's kind of fun to turn the medical meetings. You take a few extra days and check.
You
out
have
the
to.
locale. Yeah.
You have to, because as far as I'm concerned, I've been to enough of these meetings where if you don't stick around for a little bit of local exploration, then it's a wasted trip because the meetings are the same.
Yeah.
And there's rarely anything new. So, there's a question I want to ask you, and I think this might lead into a couple of the things that I've got in mind as a segue. But I know that you're an FET practitioner. You have been for a few decades now, and of course, it's unavoidable that you do a lot of FUE, and most likely majority FUE. What's the breakdown currently in early 2026 of your FUE to FUT ratio?
That's a great question. It's been changing over the past 10 years. It used to be, and it's kind of based on the instrumentation advances. I had the robot. We haven't used that in several years.
Okay.
It was good for select patients, but the instruments that have come out in the last few years, I'm using the WA Duo system from Belgium. The tip design is very elegant
Amazing.
And,
it's an amazing design.
Yeah, genius, really. And so I think that as patient demand has increased and the instrumentation has really come a long way, we've been transitioning more towards FUE, and I kind of, it's not about a steady state now. I would say 1 in 5 cases is a linear strip procedure.
Okay.
So 4 out of 5, so 80% FUE, still doing strips. Guys, because guys come in, they've had strips, they don't want to trim any hair. I don't offer long hair FUE. I think it's that's I think the increased trend. I'm not willing to to accept the increased transection rate that is obligatory with that procedure. I think trimming your hair down for the evidence of a hair trimming after an FUE procedure, the way we do it, is gone after 7-8 days. So you got a week out of the spotlight, you're good. In terms of if patients come in, they've already had a strip, they're familiar with it, so they'll do that. Most females, there's no reason to trim their hair down. So
that's my latest thing is females getting a hair transplant. They're automatically drawn into FUE, but they don't know why. That's just what's being offered by anyone they're talking to.
Yeah.
That's offering hair transplant surgery, because FUT is it's hard to find now, much less someone that's proficient with it. And I've had several women I've spoken to over the past year that didn't even know FUT was an option or even existed, and what the whole idea about it was. And I explained to them, the only reason we have FUE in the first place is so that men can wear their hair really short without signs of a strip scar. That's it. The whole reason why it was invented was to avoid stretch back on on donor scars for guys that want to have short, reasonable haircuts.
Thank you.
Literally.
Appreciate it.
And I've seen a lot of women come in, and when I talk about the strip, they've been to other places, and they say, no one mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that the linear strip is becoming harder to find, although, the paper by Dr. Queen and Avram that came out last year, they just reviewed the last 10 years of literature, and in their opinion, while the linear strip was the gold standard, they say it remains the gold standard along with FUE. They kind of place them both in the same category. But I know there are a lot of viewers, a lot of people out there, a lot of patients are like, is that the old way? Is that old technology?
Sorry,
No,
so
it remains the gold standard.
Sorry. So in the paper, they said that both FUT and FUE are the gold standard.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it. Sorry,
They
that doesn't make any sense compared to what? There isn't anything else.
Well, you could use the 3 and 4 millimeter punch grafts.
Yeah, but no one actually does that anymore. It's like, I don't know. I notice these things, and I have to question. It's like, wait a minute. That okay? I understand what they're saying, but a few of the comments, it's like, it doesn't really make sense. But I'd like to see that. Can you, when we're off air, can you send me the link to that study? I like you read a lot of studies, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've mentioned some studies I've not even heard of them, and I'll reach out to you and say, hey, can you send me a link on that because I want to catch up on it.
Well,
it's good.
I'm going to these plastic surgery meetings like we talked about, the Vegas Cosmetic Surgery meeting coming up later this year. It'll be the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstruction. And so I got to prepare for these meetings, and I look at the subjects that are going to, because I'm as the session chair and moderator, I get a heads up, and I have to kind of arrange all the talks for these meetings, so I know what the subjects are going to be about. And as the moderator, if the questions go quiet from the audience, I have to kind of supply questions. So I have to read up on a lot of topics
right.
that are being presented by the other physicians from around the world at these meetings. These cosmetic surgery, plastic surgery, facial plastic
good.
surgery meetings.
It's good to know. So from now on, for the future, anytime you're prepping for one of these presentations, go ahead and send me all of your source material just so I don't have to ask you for it later.
If you're serious, man, I've got a massive library of papers I could send you. You there, Joe?
Joe, what happened, brother? Oh, man, it sounds like we lost Joe.
He was a good man.
Joe is a good man. Joe, what's happening? Did we lose you? Can you hear me?
So many years of service. He'll be remembered well.
Oh, he froze. Yeah, it's on his end. Joe, come back when you have a chance. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. So what I'm hearing is you guys can actually hear Ken, but it's low. I'm recording the broadcast. Everything's coming through on my end. So I guess we could use my recording on Joe's YouTube channel once it's set. So we're going to be able to salvage this. So the phone number is 888-659-3727. Joe, are you back?
I'm back.
Okay.
Man, what'd you do?
No, that was you, brother. I think I have enough room to record this entire 2 hours, so we'll see. We're doing it in high def. So what we'll do is we'll switch it out so that on your channel you could upload the recording.
Okay.
But right now, at least in the chat, people say they could hear him. So you guys can call in 888-659-3727. Yeah, it's a great thing about live radio. It's not radio. Jesus, I'm getting old, Ken.
Live broadcast.
Saw your broadcast. You were discriminating or discerning between a podcast and a broadcast. And you felt this was a broadcast.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start doing podcasts.
Yeah.
But this is a live stream.
Yeah.
This is, the internet now is how you broadcast.
Yeah.
Radio's dead. So as mediums start to change, why do you need to change the nomenclature? Are you downloading shows and podcasts to your iPod anymore? People don't do that. No. It's streamed live.
Yeah.
Live through, all these services like Spotify. Is it Spotify? Yeah. Spotify and Apple. Mm-hmm. So anyway, no one's going to listen to me. It's not like I'm going to be able to change it back. I think the horse is out of the barn. But the reality is these aren't podcasts, and this is what broadcasting is now. So, guys, Ken's here, so you can call him.
He came all the way from Georgia just for this.
888 Georgia, baby. So
659-370. And now, Joe, I hear you're a little lower, so raise your mic a little bit.
I'm at max right now, actually.
So, Joe, I saw on one of the old shows I think it was about the celebrity hair transplants, and you had mentioned that you knew of doctors who would take their instruments and crew and I guess lighting and go to a celebrity's house or place of residence to perform the hair transplant, which I found shocking, frankly.
Yeah. That's the rumors. That's how
on the kitchen table. How does that work?
That's how the rumors. That's how Trump got his early work.
Really?
Yeah, that's the rumor. No one's confirmed it, but that's what the grapevine says. And yeah, I don't know the details on how it was performed. I just know that was a concierge service that was offered to some celebs because they didn't want to go through the hassle. I mean, the routine is the celeb comes in, they pay through the nose to rent the entire clinic for themselves for the day, if there's multiple ORs and multiple patients are coming through. So, but also to cordon off the front so no one comes in and no paparazzi or anything like that. So that's the standard way. Dark window limo coming through the back and sunglasses and umbrella to hide them as they go in and out. So it's out there. I know a few of those clinics.
I could not imagine.
So the question is, how did John Cena do it? Did he just walk in the front door and say, "Hey, I'm John, I'm here"?
No, I got a call from my COO, and she said, John Cena would like a consultation, but he only has an availability on Saturday. And,
Of course.
And we're not open Saturdays, and I was like, well,
You are now.
all right. So I went down and to my Atlanta location. I got two locations in Atlanta. So I went down to the one closer to Center City, and it's a medical building called the Medical Quarters. It's closed. It's a 3-story building full of medical suites, and so I had to go let him and his wife in. So then we went to my office, and it was just the three of us alone in a building on a Saturday, going over the details. But
Okay.
he ended up having his procedure, and I can talk about this, as everyone knows. He's given me permission and obviously come out about it, and I'm not going to reveal anything that he hasn't already revealed in terms of his the details.
Did you have to do like a prostate exam on him or anything?
I can't. Spencer.
Look, I'm trying to juggle everything here. I'm just throwing some jokes out.
No, no, but his procedure, we did not, we didn't close the clinic. He came in, we did it on a weekday, and super nice guy though, like completely down to earth. As I understand it, he holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the most Make-A-Wish Foundation hospital visits at, I think, a little over 600 over a decade, and just a super, super solid guy, and always enjoy seeing him at the center.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm curious though. I mean, so he
no, yeah.
No,
Took their pants off.
yeah. We're not going to talk about any urological problems or anything like that either. But my curiosity is, this guy's been in the public eye forever. We know that people were kind of goofing on his hair loss, unfortunately, because that's the last batch in the political incorrectness in our society. Is we can make fun of someone who has no control over a genetic condition,
Right.
which is insane.
Yeah.
So he felt some, and you look at this guy, it's like he could have just shaved his head and moved on, honestly, but he felt he was getting all this pressure. Maybe he was going to adversely affect his career. So he decided to get something done. But he did say online a couple of times that he really felt the pressure from the public to get it done.
He said that there were people in the stands of when he was in the ring with signs talking about his bald spot.
Now, I'm glad you're able to help him out. But honestly, if he would have contacted me first in a panic, I would have said, "Listen, brother, you can get a great procedure done, but try to shave your head and see how you look, because in all honesty, it's surgery, and if you could avoid surgery, why not avoid it?" Now,
as he mentioned, we didn't jump right to surgery.
yeah. I know you wouldn't jump right to surgery.
No, I had him on conservative, non-surgical therapy for about 8 months before he decided. He said, it's been 8 months. We haven't seen much progression, despite the throwing all the effective treatments at it. And so I felt it was ethical and appropriate at that point to move forward with the surgery. But we didn't jump right to surgery.
Well, all right. So I don't know what you can talk about as far as what he's doing, but I know that he's actually spoken about doing PRP and other potentially regenerative treatments if it's anything else than PRP.
Well, I want to comment what you said about how, he had the hair loss. People were bullying him into it. I was looking up at some, studies, and it turns out there's a study that showed that people with hair loss feel more stigmatized internally, like they're more self-conscious about it than people with mental disorders. They actually compared. They got people with mental disorders from a psychiatric clinic. I think in this study there were about 45 of them, and then they also evaluated about 45 individuals with hair loss, and they gave them the same questionnaire about how self-conscious they feel about it, how shunned they perceive themselves to be, and so it's a lot more. It affects people a lot more than some realize. And as I say to my patients and online, hair loss hurts, and I think he felt that stigma internally and decided to do something about it. And I think that shaving your head that can be fairly extreme for a lot of people.
Oh, listen, brother, look at me. Look at where you are. I made my entire career out of the pain and the suffering, and I coined this as a cancer of the spirit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a
you
did. I remember that.
I was 21 years old when I started to lose my hair, and I had no one to help me. There was nothing out there. And I went to see Norman Orenreich, and I almost had a consult with.
Back in the 1960s, right?
Close, yeah. So this was actually the mid '80s, the late '80s. So it's close to the '60s. Jesus Christ! Listen, I'm going to file that away, Ken. By the way.
Oh, sorry, bud.
What was I going to say? You just threw me off with the old stuff. Oh, so
Dude, I'm starting to get those jokes. People, I got the gray white beard at this point. It's a fact of life, man.
Well, I mean, we look unusually young for our age. Let's face it. So, I mean, so Orenreich.
I'm 83 years old, so I do get that a lot.
I know you look great for your age. I told you that.
Yeah, really do.
When you walked in, it's the first thing I thought. I was like, God, this old guy looks fantastic. But
it's all that hockey I'm playing.
Well, you're in good shape. Yeah. But Orenreich wanted to do a hair transplant on me. I basically had a slightly less recessed hairline than I have now. Yeah. No thin spot in the back yet. Yeah. My hair was just falling out. And he was like, let's just try a few grafts. If you're my own son, I would put them in there. I would have had 4-millimeter horns in my head for the rest of my life. Yeah. I would have gone down the path that all these guys like Joe went down, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And
now, that's very interesting that he suggested surgery, but you opted. Tell me, where did the motivation come for you to say, no, I'm not going to do what the doctor said he would do to his own son?
I think the fact that I was kind of a young entrepreneur, I was already making money, and I had a lot of experiences with really effed up people, older people who try to take advantage of me in business. Yeah. And it just didn't sit right. I was like, where are you going to put the hair? Yeah. And his whole idea was, well, you're going to continue to lose hair. So we're going to kind of keep up with your hair loss. But all his pictures were dark and grainy. And also what turned me off is apparently he saw some sort of an ingrown, like a pimple on my chin or something. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a beard. And he's like, I'll before you go, let my nurse take care of that for you. I'm like, oh, I really appreciate that. I go out to sign out, charge me $250 to pop a pimple. And I was like, all right, this is bad. And you're talking about like 1986 or something like that. That was a lot of money, you know? And he was charging $25 a graft back then. Yeah. So anyway, so the money was there. I guess I just had the wherewithal to step back and say something was not right here. Yeah. I don't feel comfortable. And then I went to the hair club, and they wanted to sell me. I didn't know it was a wig. I thought, you look at the commercials. It's like a strand-by-strand process. What is this? Yeah. I was making this poor woman sweat, by the way. She was trying to work on me for an hour. And finally, she admitted it's a wig. I'm like, well, where are you going to put it? Right. And she's like, well, we cut your hair down a little bit. And then I'm like, then you see the guy's head is shaved. Yeah. And he comes in, he's wearing this entire, sculpture thing, And I'm like, anyway, so I was like 22, I think, or something like that. Man. So I would have been destroyed. Yeah. So I was one of those guys that could have been destroyed, but I decided to do my research and then expose this industry for what it was once I found finasteride and, a little derm match. And, and I feel very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Well, kudos to you, because I'm seeing a lot of patients coming back from Turkey, frankly, and I say, how did this happen?
And by the way, I'm going to put the shot on you, Ken, and just move your camera a little bit because you're sliding over to the other side.
I can just move over here.
Yeah, can you move the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, center yourself a little bit more. Move it a little bit more over.
To this way?
Yeah, good. Yeah, perfect. I just want to see you centered. I don't want you to be kind of cut off.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you
I saw
off.
a patient recently from Turkey. They offer some discounted procedures. And this guy, 26, 27 years old, and he had the hairline was about a full inch lower than where I would have put it, and it kind of curved down in the corners instead of having a natural male recession. And he had coarse hair, and there were 4 haired follicles in the leading edge of the hairline, very coarse, it didn't look great. And he was coming in, he said, what do I do about this? And I asked him, though, I said, how did this happen? Like, why is this hairline way down here? And he says, that's what the technician said. They said, this is what it takes for the youthful look. And they just kept pushing him that they kept repeating that. I said, well, what did the doctor say? He said, I didn't see a doctor. And so that tells me, the main thing I got out of that is the youthful look is not what we're going for if we're, with hair restoration surgery. The hairlines have to be absolutely timeless because they're permanent, and they have to look good when you're, like this gentleman was, 26, 27, and when you're 87. So that's one thing. And then I asked him, I said, well, what prevention, did they just suggest? And he said they didn't suggest any. Now, not to impugn an entire nation, there are some very talented surgeons.
There's maybe 12.
All right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But there's a whole industry out there that is I think that really not to the best interest of a lot of young men, because this particular patient I have in mind and that I'm talking about is going to require several procedures to try to move that hairline up, and that's going to leave behind scarring, and he wasn't thrilled to hear about all that. And his donor area, with one pass, is on the precipice of being over harvested. So that's his, he shot his shot. He won't have any future.
That's his destiny. And these guys all, listen, guys, hold on. We'll take your calls in a second. What's happening today is really just a reflection of what started, sadly, in the United States. The industry, when I got into it back in the late 90s, it was a total mess. But it wasn't at this scale. There's a barrier to entry for patients as well, because you had to have money in order to have a hair transplant. They started financing back then as well, but you really had to have enough money to do it. So the younger guys could not make that decision in general to jump in and have premature surgery. Now, I'm not saying that the large chain clinics, guys, hold on, we'll take your calls in a second. Everyone just hung up. I'm not saying that, young guys didn't do it, because the large chain clinics were selling to young guys. And we had plenty of young guys who contacted me once I started whose lives were destroyed, especially when I started just on New York radio. However, now we're living in a time where it's incredibly inexpensive. We're living in a social media society. These procedures are looked at as turnkey, very simple outpatient procedures. They're very inexpensive. And we're dealing with a population of men whose, prefrontal cortexes, is that what it is? You're a doctor.
Yes.
Not even formed. I don't even think mine was formed until I was 35.
Yeah.
To be honest. It still
feel.
might not be formed.
I identify with that for sure.
I can tell you that my ex probably thinks it's still not formed. But we're dealing with, just a very, very ultra vulnerable population that are more vulnerable than ever because it's such easy access. So we are looking at a group of walking wounded that I could never have imagined. Literally hundreds of thousands of men's lives, young men and women, are being destroyed from every year from what's happening overseas. And now it's happening here in the U.S. worse than ever. We've spoken about this before, but you got a great guy right across the way, Mark Dower, great hair transplant surgeon. We have a couple of other great hair transplant surgeons who are in Los Angeles or Beverly Hills. There's about 14 guys claiming to perform hair transplant surgery within about a 7-block radius of me.
Wow.
All turnkey guys. They hire techs, and that's it. It's a mess. So, what was my point? My point is everything's effed up, brother. And it's getting worse.
I think you're right, because I've seen it firsthand at my center, and I think if social media is kind of what it is like today, I think in about 15, 20 years, you're going to see a whole genre of guys, our age, who have these hairlines that are really low and really straight, and there's going to be a whole subculture of social media posts about that phenomenon, inappropriately low hairlines that these young men are getting.
They're already seeing it after just a few years. There's a guy, and I said the story before, and Joe knows the story. And Joe, let me put you on camera here because you look so lonely by yourself.
Well, I feel lonely. Thank you.
Yeah.
We get a guest and we forget about Joe. I see how it works.
That's how it works. Listen, I'm trying to juggle, get the sound going. We just lost calls again. I'm trying to keep things running here, brother.
At some point we ought to get another desk in here and have Joe in studio, the three of us.
Spencer would love that.
No. You guys will be sitting right next to each other, but we'd have the mics
we'll be
working.
Like this.
Sorry. So I was just thrown off by someone giving me a very good suggestion about your mic, but I'll see if I can figure it out in a couple of seconds. What was I saying, Joe? What was I getting to?
We were talking about social media.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a guy. Well, first of all, there's two guys. There's one guy that parks directly next to me who had a really good procedure, young guy. He may be listening. I saw his process when I was going down to the gym, and he looks great. He made the right decision. He went to a decent hair transplant surgeon here in Los Angeles. Another guy, very close to me in my parking area, drives a Bugatti, one of his cars. He's got like Ferrari, a G-Wagon, a Bugatti. This guy is loaded. He's a legit billionaire. He knows what I do. Okay, we would go drinking at the bar sometimes, and he was like a Norwood 4, never coming back, in my opinion, and relatively not old, but like maybe 40-ish, something like that. I see him park his car. He gets out of the car. He walks out, and he looks like a porcupine. I'm like, holy shit! I didn't know where to turn. I didn't want him to talk to me and ask me what I thought.
Yeah.
The guy, he waves me down. He's like, hey, Spence, what do you think? I just got back from Turkey. I didn't want to say, why'd you go to Turkey? You know what I did? You have all the money in the world. You could have flown in Ken Anderson or whoever, to do surgery. I hope he's not listening, God. I doubt it. But it's irreparable what's happened to this guy. Handsome guy, loaded. First of all, I didn't need hair, but I understand why he wanted it. And the reason he went is he believed that essentially Turkish doctors were the leaders in this field.
Yeah, because everyone talks about it. It's morphed from being the value destination to being the expert destination.
Yeah, guys on my hockey team in Atlanta, we went out for dinner after a game one night, and they're like, yeah, isn't Turkey the mecca of this? And I said, no, the procedure was invented and perfected in the United States, not Turkey. And but I think Turkey, they've done a great job marketing that somehow. And I've heard that opinion.
Well, you may not know this, Ken, but the Turkish government subsidizes every clinic that markets internationally 50% of their overall expenses.
I did know that.
50%. And some of these clinics are pushing out over $100,000 a month.
Wow.
On AdWords.
Yeah. Then you got the difference between the American dollar and the Turkish currency.
Of course, yeah.
I didn't think it would fly when I first heard about this years ago. They're like, you're going to stay in a hotel and get a ride. I'm like, that's irrelevant, but it's attracting some people. I have patients who come to see me in Atlanta from Turkey, And I asked them, I'm like, so why? He's like, and they tell me that I would never trust the doctors in Turkey, so that they come over to see, me here in the United States.
Yeah.
And guys,
it's funny.
I'm sorry
I've
if I'm
seen that.
preoccupied. I'm having people tell me how to fix the sound and have maybe Ken actually call in through a vMix call just for the sound.
Well, if you have the sound on your, if you can like create a video for a permanent record later on YouTube, then
Yeah, I'm recording it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if your sound's recording. I see your sound coming in through my monitors,
I see.
so it should be recording.
All right.
So as long as I hear you, the callers hear you.
Yeah.
I know that I'm not going to give out her name. Your friend hears you. Through everyone, we should be able to record it.
Okay.
I really think it's just for whatever reason through my software, Joe's not hearing you through the mic, and the live people aren't hearing you through the mic. But we'll figure it out. I mean, they could hear you. You could hear him, right, to some degree.
We're not the important ones anyway. So as long as you can hear them, that's what matters. So, yeah, no, we can hear them.
I didn't say it. You said it, Joe.
Yeah, everyone can hear him. It's just some can hear him better than others, and that's okay.
All right, so guys, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I want you guys to call in. This is what I'm getting right now. That means all the calls dropped. So call in, speak to Ken Anderson. We could bullshit for 3 hours. I'm fine with that. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about. I want to know
we got
more
history.
about.
We go back.
But do want to know a little bit more about, John Cena. Can you tell us? And again, we don't want to get into physician-patient confidentiality, but like what you really need to do to help him out, because from what I was able to see, he was maintaining a pretty strong hairline.
So you had mentioned on an earlier podcast that about me that I treat every patient the same, and that's right. So what I suggest patients do who have male pattern hair loss, we first do some blood tests. Right, we look at iron, ferritin, vitamin D, thyroid, and ferritin is an interesting one because the normal reference range for ferritin is like 50 to 300. I think it's or nanograms per deciliter, whatever the units are. But we want to see that at 80 or above, the ferritin level specifically. The iron level is a measure of your circulating iron in your blood. The ferritin level is the measure of the iron stores in your body. We want to see that at 80 or above. So these aren't things that are going to be causing the hair loss, but certainly it could be pushing it along faster than it needs to be going. So we want to optimize the man's physiology for optimal hair growth. And then I'm a big fan, of course, of the FDA-approved medications, finasteride, minoxidil. They can be taken orally, topically. And then we also talk about the laser cap. I am a believer in that technology. I've got 10 or 12 peer-reviewed, placebo device-controlled, randomized controlled trials showing the benefits of daily laser cap use. If you have a quality laser cap, it's not going to perform a miracle, but I think as an adjunct therapy to the medications over time, it's going to make a big difference.
We're actually about to bring a trusted one of the laser caps on as a trusted brand. We have basically looked at everything, as you know. We spoke about this.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll be one of the first to know once it happens.
Okay.
But I think you know the story. But many years ago, when $500,000 was a lot of money, I was offered that on an annual basis just to basically provide our endorsement to one of the old school brands.
Yeah.
Every time I tell the story, I know my father's rolling over in his grave. But I was not convinced, and I thought that it would somehow harm my reputation, which now I realize it wouldn't have done anything to my reputation, and I should have taken the money. But the truth is, there wasn't enough data out there.
Yeah.
And most physicians, maybe like yourself at the time, you were like, I don't really believe in this stuff. And it took us time. I don't know if you were one of the guys that didn't believe in it, but there was like Alan Bauman was a big believer. A couple of other guys were big believers. But even at the conferences, no one wanted to talk about it. This is when...
What year was this roughly?
2004.
Oh.
Don't get into the age thing again, brother.
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry, bud.
All right.
I didn't know we're so sensitive about that.
I'm really not.
Acceptance is your friend.
Yeah, I appreciate. Listen, I'm going to be 61 in 2 months. I feel pretty good.
Which is unbelievable. You do not look like you're in your 60s for sure, man.
Yeah, well, just I'll mess with my shirt off. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, that's 2004. I don't know that we had. I was with Rasmus then. We hadn't even began.
You were a baby. I met you. I think
Yeah,
you were a kid.
Little kid. No, that's. Well, I think the studies proving its efficacy. Those were mainly in the after the 2010, right?
Yeah. Well, listen. I don't bring up the. Well, no. There was. I mean, one company was able to get some studies out there, and they were actually able to get. They got FDA clearance, so that was a big deal at the time. But I don't talk about the amount of money that was offered to me as some sort of a humble brag or anything like that. Is that what it's called, Joe? But I want to just kind of say, put it out there that there's so much money in this that they're willing to offer a schmuck like me that kind of money back then just for our endorsement through the American Hair Loss Association. So it really kind of goes to show you how big the industry was, how it's grown, how it's scaled, and how much money people are willing to spend just to kind of get social proof that, and separate themselves from everybody else. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on laser cap now, on a laser type of cap? Or are you a believer in like red light therapy for hair loss? We never talk about that. Oh, come on, Joe. Now we lost you again. That's definitely on your end. I'm going to give you a second.
So I have a patient that came to see me, and he had.
You're a real pro, by the way, Ken. I appreciate that.
His hair. What?
You're a pro. You're just a pro on the air. And anybody else would have just sat there frozen, waiting for me to try to get Joe's sound, and you came right in. Thank you for that.
Well, we've done this a number of times.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks, bud. But I want to tell you about this patient I had. When I started seeing him, little older guy, probably in his 60s, and his hair was, like white as my white coat. I suggested he use the laser cap. The laser cap, those red photons are very stimulatory to an enzyme in the mitochondria. As the audience may know, the powerhouse of the cell, right? And so it dramatically increases what doctors call cellular respiration, or what commonly metabolism. It's like kind of sending the tissue to the gym to sprint on the treadmill. And just like we as human beings, when we're on the treadmill, what do we need? More oxygen. So we're breathing harder. Well, when that tissue every day is stimulated like that, the body recognizes that and says, hey, this tissue here needs more oxygen. And so it encourages new blood vessel ingrowth and increased vascularity of the tissue. So it's stimulatory to the tissue, including the hair follicles and their stem cells, and also the melanocytes. I truly believe if you did a carefully...
So you're telling me that my hair will turn brown again?
That's what happened to this one guy.
Really?
His hair came back after 8 or 9 months. He came in, and his hair was light brown, except in the back there where the cap doesn't cover, still white.
Here's the thing, Brett. I don't want to. The chicks dig this. They like the gray hairs. I don't want to lose that.
Well, if it was white, you might feel differently. But I bet if you had a really carefully crafted study, you would see that it would slow down, prevent, or delay the graying of the hair. I believe that.
Joe, I heard your breath, so you're back.
So yeah. So here's what. And maybe this has changed, but the studies that were out when I was first looking at this, they made the correlation with mitochondrial recharging, for lack of a better. That's actually the terminology that someone used back then.
Yeah.
But no one knew exactly why. Like it was all guesswork, and it was. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, and they would say it's theorized that it stimulates the mitochondria activity, but it was never broken down as like we know, it's anything beyond theory.
Well,
and
I remember for years it was like it was the whole photomodulation.
Well,
Yeah.
as
mantra.
I understand it,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with biochemistry and if you're familiar with biology, there's something called the electron transport chain that's responsible for the production of ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is kind of the currency of energy in our bodies.
Yeah.
They're within the Krebs cycle. Bringing a lot of listeners back to biochem. In the Krebs cycle, there's an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase, which has been identified as the chromophore for this energy in the 650 to 680 nanometer spectrum, which is the color red. A chromophore is a molecule that produces a biological response in response to being stimulated by light. And so that's what they know. They do know the enzyme is the chromophore. It is causing the effect. What they theorize is that nitric oxide molecules are being cleaved off of this enzyme, unencumbering this enzyme. That particular enzyme speeds up, the whole Krebs cycle speeds up, and that's what causes the increase in cellular respiration, the increased demand for oxygen, and the increased production of ATP. They've also shown that not only does the activity in the individual mitochondria increase, but that mitochondria, it's called mitochondriogenesis. Basically, the mitochondria multiply, so the cells end up having not only energized mitochondria, but more of them.
Right. And that's great. But then when we take it to the next level, when you look at all of the units that are out there in the wild,
Yeah.
and all the people that are buying these of various, limitless various variations of formats, caps, helmets, combs, with varying numbers of diodes, not even lasers anymore, introducing LEDs.
Yep.
There's no standard on this, and so
That's
when you're looking at a study, and you can correct me on this, I don't know, are they stipulating the exact specifications of the diodes that they're using for that particular study, or are they simply using a device that's on the market? And the study is not funded by the device maker of these independent studies, and that's the problem. There's no real study as far as studies go that I'm aware of, or there used to not be. And when you combine that with the lack of standardization, where it's so loose, where all of these diodes they have zero difference. Not to mention the medical grade stipulation that's applied to some of these things. There's no such thing as a medical grade laser diode. It simply doesn't exist. They're no different than the same diodes you buy for cat toys, or laser pointers from Staples.
Can't argue with that.
They're
But
exact
I will
same
say
thing.
Some of the caps have 3 milliwatt lasers, the cheaper caps anyway, and some have 5 milliwatt lasers. And I think the effect is directly proportional to how much energy you're putting into the tissue. And
Yeah.
I had a patient a few years ago. He said he got one of the knockoff caps off Amazon for $5 or $6, a few $100. Compared to the ones that retail for $2,000 or $3,000. I said, bring it in. I want to see this because I was curious myself. Does it put out the same energy? And so there was a room in my Atlanta location doesn't have windows. We had one wall was pretty much white, and he and I went into the room, closed the door, turned the lights off, and then we took turns, aiming the cap at the white wall to see how bright the light was, which would indicate how much energy is coming out of the cap. So we turned the name brand cap on, fairly bright. I turned it off. He had his Amazon one. He turned it on, significantly dimmer. As I was watching, I thought, that's really, and he spoke up. He said, oh, he's like, oh my gosh, look at that. He's like, I can't believe how very different. So I think that there are differences in caps. I think.
Oh no, of course there are. Absolutely, there are differences, but the diodes themselves, the specification to be considered 510K cleared by the FDA, it has to be 650 nanometer wavelength, and I forgot the wattage output. I thought it was 1.5 watt output, but it's been 20 years since I looked into this.
Well, what you guys
yeah.
may not know, I'm not sure about this, is as we were doing our research, and guys, if my mic is hot or if you hear me typing, I'm just trying to keep the mic as high as possible on my end so people could hear Ken. but I will kind of back off the mic a little bit so it doesn't sound too hot. A certain percentage of the diodes that are purchased are not as, let's say, effective. They're not as strong as they should be when they're incorporated into these caps. So when you're buying from a cheaper company, they're not really testing the diodes. They're just buying them from China or from Korea, thinking they're all getting the exact same diodes, and then maybe incorporating into their cap. So you have no idea, really, if the diodes that are claiming to have a certain strength have been tested. And I know that some of the better companies will discard maybe 10 to 20% of the diodes that they purchase overseas because they don't have the right strength because they're testing them. So that's one reason to buy a more expensive cap from a legitimate company. Now, I'm not saying it makes all the difference in the world because now we're finding out that you may not need 270 diodes or more. To get the same effect. So,
well,
if
I was wondering if there's even
diodes,
a threshold where there's a point where you got too many diodes, because it's like
some people say that,
yeah.
You can overdo it.
Yeah.
That's been shown.
But look, to me, at this point in my career, every little bit helps, and we do see some good evidence. You got guys like Dr. Anderson, who's a believer. Bauman has been, hit me over the head with this for 20 some odd years, and I'm like, okay, I think you're right. Sorry,
Alan's great. I just saw him recently at there was an invite-only surgery course in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, but before we continue, I do want to say that being such a critic of laser caps, I do acknowledge and embrace the fact that there are anecdotal or there's anecdotal evidence to show that they do work. I've seen it firsthand, which just reinforces the fact that we just don't know what the hell's going on with these. They can help some people, but it's by my.
I didn't know you weren't a believer. Somehow I missed that through all this time.
Guys,
let me
I
am a believer.
Just
in the reality
for one
of it.
second. So guys who are not calling because you feel that you can't hear Ken clearly through the chat, even though you guys are saying you can hear him, you'll be able to hear him directly through the phone. So you can speak to him and hear him clearly through his microphone if you call 888-659-3727. Joe.
Yes.
Tell your people to call in, for crying out loud. This guy came all the way from Atlanta.
You just did.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys. So I don't want to keep...
Where's Morty?
Morty became attached to our friend in Atlanta, our other friend in Atlanta.
In Alpharetta.
Oh.
The guy... remember that guy called in? He was loaded one day. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. So no, he got a couple of free. That was a great call, by the way. That was radio history. You got a
liar. Here we go, liar. Pants on fire.
Brother, I told you not to play that again. So he got his free hair transplants because he was connected to the show because he called in all the time, and then he just kind of disappeared. He went on with his life. Joe and I have been used for how many years?
It did take about a year for him to disappear.
Yeah, because he wanted to make sure that it grew in.
He was tapering off his participation because of dinners with his mother that could only be on Fridays.
Well, I mean, he's a quasi. I think he's a conservative Jewish man, so he's got to have. His mother's getting old, so he's got to have Friday night dinners.
Of course.
Let's take a phone call, guys. And hopefully everyone could hear us. You're on the air. Who's it? He hung up. All right, guys, call back 888-659-3727. Yeah, Morty just decided that what?
Morty.
I had enough of this. I'm not gonna be a part of it anymore. So listen, Dr. Anderson, I know that you, and I don't know how far this has evolved since the last time we spoke, but you were starting to train physicians. You wanted to start, not necessarily, was it like an academy kind of a thing? Okay. You want to talk about that a little bit? You don't have to.
It's in an embryo. It's a great, there's only so many hours in the week.
That's a good point. Listen.
It's a great idea, but the business or the practice business is just so busy that that I haven't really put as much together regarding that as I wanted to. It's funny you mentioned that, and we're supposed to be heading into a relatively it's very busy throughout the winter. It tends to according to historical data and as I understand throughout the industry, it gets a little bit lighter in the summer. But so instead of spreading out the operations, because I operate every day, I'm going to take Mondays and have that be protected from operating. It's our least popular day, and so it's so funny you mentioned that because I was like, I've had this idea and I want to work on it, and I'm thinking about it all last year.
Why don't you just relax at this point in your life, brother?
No,
I mean,
this
come
is
on.
what I want to do.
All right.
And so I've got Mondays carved out, so the first Monday is actually on the 23rd in a couple of weeks. That's when that it begins in earnest. I've got some
Nice.
rough groundwork planned, but it's something I want to accomplish in 2026. And so the next time I'm on the show, I'll have a lot more to say about that.
Well, I can tell you this. You talk about not following through with something or not having the time to do something. I was going to, I was kind of asked to put this together, but we were going to put together the Journal of the American Hair Loss Association.
Oh, wow.
And we got everybody,
Yeah.
every major hitter in the field, all the hair loss, every name you can imagine as either part of the faculty, part of the editorial board. We had Jeff Donovan, all the big guys.
that guy.
Yeah. And as we're putting it together, and this would have been a lot of work. It was going to be a open access journal where consumers were able to get the truth as well, trying to be non-political.
Yeah.
I was going to fund it all.
Yeah.
So the first thing initially, they're like, well, how are you going to charge for it? I think we should charge for it. Who's going to fund it? I said, listen, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. I just want to bring you guys together to put it together, okay? I had one guy who's once a former editor of the Hair Transplant Forum International and a couple of other guys who worked on real journals.
Yeah.
It was the most frustrating experience besides working with John Cole on the Global Hair Loss Summit that I ever experienced in my life. And the journal would have been big.
Yeah.
And, so I set everything up. We had, the ISSN numbers set up, and we had all the journals, everything was like in place. These guys couldn't stop arguing with each other.
Oh, really?
Everyone,
What were they arguing about?
your doctors, I'm sorry, maybe not you, brother, but I have never met a group of people who were like so afraid of their own shadow or concerned about the politics of medicine getting in the way of their practice, not offending their colleagues. And I wanted to get the truth out there through these in-clinic, studies and papers and all. They wanted the same old stuff. And then when it came to peer review, first of all, I learned a lot. I learned that we could pick our peer reviewers and get anything published, first of all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned everything you need to know about these journals. And I just decided to pull the plug. I was like, I think this could be really cool for people. It could be really great for the industry. Yeah. There's not a real journal in our specialty, like a real journal that's, that's recognized and aggregated in PubMed. I have the access and the ability to do that.
I wonder why the forum isn't in PubMed.
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
Because the ISHS is a trade organization, and they only want so much information to be put out there for public consumption because a lot of what the doctors are allowed to get published is very fringe, and it could make conventional medicine kind of look at them with a jaundiced eye. People want free reign in this industry. Now, you're a different kind of guy. You're a triple board certified hair transplant surgeon, which means that you are a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon. I'm assuming that you, if I remember correctly, were you originally an ENT? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Formally otolaryngology, but colloquially ear, nose, and throat surgery.
Right. So, I mean, you have a surgical residency as an ENT. You went in and you got certified by the American Board of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery. you see medicine a little differently than maybe someone who is an internist and just hangs up a shingle.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. Now, there's a lot of politics in your side of the field as well. But I can tell you that a lot of these guys just don't, they want to fly under the radar. That's what I've learned.
Interesting.
And I gave them an opportunity where they were like, I'm like, listen, there's no ads. He's like, well, who are we going to get for advertisers? We don't need advertisers. I'm going to pay for everything.
Yeah.
They couldn't even understand that concept. Like, I wasn't trying to charge for it. I didn't want to make a profit. I'm lucky enough where I could afford to do it. We could change the industry and help people. It was just a mess. That's all I can say. So I just pulled the plug.
When was this?
Started in, 2023, Joe?
Yes, 23.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, if I showed you the list of people that we had,
Yeah.
some of your colleagues, but guys from, people from all over the world, Italy, Austria, Switzerland,
Yeah.
and I had to disappoint them. Basically say, look, we can't do this. So I get it, and it was going to take a lot of my time too.
Yeah. There's only so many hours, bud.
I got a lot of time though.
Only so many days.
I don't have to perform surgery like you. You have to go into the office every day. You got to perform surgery.
Yeah, no, I love it, though.
You got a real job.
I wouldn't call it a job. It doesn't feel like a job.
Well,
It's just kind of,
I appreciate that.
No,
yeah.
it honestly feels like my purpose in life. True story. So there, 2 Easters ago, about 2 years ago, I was like, I need to straighten out my office and just get some stuff done at the office. So I went in on Easter Sunday, and 8 hours later, after going through all the emails and just I was driving home very satisfied with how much I got done that day, and it occurred to me, I thought, wow, bro, you just worked 8 hours on Easter Sunday, and I thought, if you had a boss who ordered you to go in and work 8 hours on a Sunday,
You'd be pissed.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
But here I am. It didn't even dawn on me until I was driving home. I'm like, this. Yeah, it's a privilege. I love. I've got a fantastic team that I've assembled in Georgia. Everyone's a star at their respective position. Shout outs to Beck. Shout outs to Bex Mitchell. Shout out to Jeremy Wetzel. Big shout out to Keisha Williams. And of course, huge shout out to Matt Longshore. These are just some of the people. I'm not going to name all the technicians, but even the girls who answer the phone, Sam and Madison. Anyway, great. It's like a family atmosphere at work. Love joking around with Linda, Sherlina, Kia, and
You're making me feel bad about my very isolated life, brother.
Renee.
Make us feel lonely.
Can't forget T. It's
I just go down and get blackout drunk at the bar once a week. So
it's awesome, and so I love going into the office and the patients. Right, I get to be the doctor where no typical doctors are taking care of sick patients. No one wants to go to the ER.
Yeah, that's
No one
bad.
wants to be. The patients that I see want to be there, and they're in their normal state of health and happiness, and we're elevating that. I'm kind of giving them back a little bit of their youth and happiness. So it's a.
But you also have to be kind of a psychologist as well. You're also dealing with some unhappy especially the younger guys, some unhappy
But I'm
people.
offering a solution, so it makes them happy.
Yeah.
And the days of surgery, it's not stressful. It feels
Oh, so what you're saying is like the super depressed people only contact me.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's maybe something to that. But and then doing the surgery, listening to music all day, it's very enjoyable. Love what I do. I have a real passion for it. So.
By the way, everyone
Definitely,
watching,
I
this
would
is a
not
call-in
consider it
show.
a job. Definitely not a job.
Please
Career.
don't forget, give us a call and like this broadcast too, because Dr. Ken came all the way from Atlanta just to sit here.
Yeah,
and
and
talk to
I
you
promise
guys.
you'll be able to hear Dr. Ken very clearly on the phone, so you can take your call. And then I'm recording this broadcast, and with his sound, so we will put that up on Joe's channel. So whoever's in the chat live right now, just deal with it, but give us a call. Normally, when Ken's on the program, the phones are off the hook. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it together right. I had my staff. I don't really have a staff. My IT guy wasn't around
Support.
today. I thought that this was, I set this up perfectly. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and you should see how many wires there are here.
Yeah, normally,
There are like what? There must be 24. It's.
you remember I used
You
to
wouldn't think there'd be that many.
I used to
reps.
cover it
Yeah.
before.
Oh, is that why it looks different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had to come back and like, oh, wait a second, I got to plug this
Now
in. I
that
got to.
looks like a plate of linguine just someone threw up here. Like,
Yeah.
oh, look at this.
It takes a lot to get this broadcast. I mean, that's why. How many podcasters do you know that do a live show where they take calls?
No, it's very different.
It doesn't exist.
I told a colleague last night, I said, we had dinner with Dr. Nick Fettman. He's here in Los Angeles. He's an otolaryngologist, great guy. I played hockey with him at the University of Michigan and years ago. Anywho, we were talking, and he said it's, a live show is very different. And what I told him is that it's kind of like when I took the oral boards for both my facial plastic surgery board exam and for my ear, nose, and throat surgery board exam, because you go in, the board exam, it's a 2-day test. The first day is 8 hours of written exam, and the second day is 8 hours where you go and, it's at a hotel, so you go into different rooms for 1 hour at a time, all day long, and these chairmen of programs from around the nation will sit there, and they've got photographs, and it's very high pressure, but you have to be prepared to be asked anything. And I told them that when patients call in, it's kind of like that, because you don't know what's coming, but you got to answer it on your feet and be, sound intelligent in a live manner. There's no time to prep for the questions.
Well, Joe has been faking that for years.
So if I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that that this is going to record to sound well. But you know what? I can actually have it tweaked if it's low anyway. So
And I could come back, man. Love coming to LA.
I just want to let you know. I mean, you're always welcome back, but
Yeah.
I could definitely make it into something. But
You know what?
let's take a call.
One or
Go ahead.
both. Go ahead.
Hey, you there? You're on the air.
Hello,
Hello.
Hey,
this is Richard. I would like to know, since this is a rare opportunity, how many grafts did Cena get?
That I'm not going to talk about, just because he hasn't said it publicly.
Okay.
With all
What
due
can
respect.
you tell me about it? Fair enough, but what can be said about it? Because this is groundbreaking. He is the biggest wrestler in the world.
Yes. Well,
and
he's doing-
and rumor is he's also a fairly decent actor.
Oh yeah.
Just saying.
He is
Wrestling is acting.
he's one of my best patients in that he, not just a great guy, but he's doing all of the non-surgical at home, what I call homework, that should be done because, hair restoration surgery does nothing to prevent the inevitable progression of hair loss itself. So he's doing all the homework, and he had a follicular unit, an FUE procedure, that so many are getting. But that's the type of procedure he had, and but I think what has contributed to his success is the fact that he's doing the what I recommend my patients do at home every day to help with to help stave off the incurable phenomenon of progressive male pattern hair loss.
He doesn't seem
So
like
is he
one
on-
that's difficult to follow protocols, because you look at the guy, he's incredibly educated,
Yeah.
and to be able to learn how to speak Chinese to the proficiency that he does, like, you got to pay attention. You got to be a good study. So I have no doubt he's following the protocols at home that you gave him to maintain his hair, for sure.
So did he do the hairline or the crown or both?
I'm not going to talk. I can't talk about that either.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
appreciate.
But you
I
say that-
get you want to know about that, but these are not things he's talked about.
That's fair enough, but I'm just wondering about the things you can talk about with him. Like, did you discuss FUT?
Yes.
So why
Of course.
would he settle on FUE then? It's just interesting.
Well, that's a great question. Where are you calling from?
Europe.
Very good. The FUT, as we discussed earlier in the program, remains the gold standard. I think, as you know, there was a paper that came out last year that sort of also positioned finally FUE for years was not the gold standard. It was the alternate way. But I think with the advancement of instruments, their design, efficiency, and the talent of the teams using them, it has brought FUE up into the gold standard echelon. There are definitely advantages and disadvantages to each method. Certainly, the main thing is in how the scars are managed, right? The linear FUT procedure does leave that linear scar, potentially allows for more follicles to be safely transplanted than the FUE procedure, but it has the disadvantage of that linear scar. It has the disadvantage of the fact that 100% of the follicles in the linear strip are coming for the transplant, whereas with FUE, you can select, right? If you're doing a crown and you don't need too many fine singles, you can go for mainly 3 and 4 haired follicles, right? The surgeon can be selective in which follicles he is going to take for the transplant. If we're doing, say, a hairline with temporal points, well, you're going to need a lot of fine singles, so the surgeon can kind of skew it that way. So it leaves a little bit more room for adjustment on the surgeon's part, but then it also has the advantage of not leaving a linear scar. So we absolutely discussed both, as I do with every male patient that wants to discuss the various methods. But yes, of course, I spoke about both methods with him, and he felt that with his lifestyle and with the outcome he wanted, that the FUE was the way to go.
But I thought that FUE was not as good for the long term.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah, you absolutely
Yeah, I can tell you that, from what I can tell, not that he's old, but John Cena's got to be 45 or 50 by now, right?
Well, you can look that up, right?
Yeah, I can.
I'm not going to say it out
Yeah.
loud because he hasn't.
Yeah, but he's not a super young man. So I mean, I think that guys who make it to that age with relatively strong donor, even though there's a possibility of having senescent alopecia, which I'm starting to get, by the way, Ken. I don't want to talk about it.
According to the interwebs, he's 48 years old.
48. Okay. So the likelihood of him progressing heavily in the donor it's not that likely. I mean, it's going to happen in time, but the reality is if things are spread out well, mostly in a relatively sweet spot area, which I'm sure Dr. Anderson did, those grafts could last for a long time. Now, if you're 20 or 25 years old and you have 8,000 FUE grafts moved, at least maybe a third will last for a long period of time because you can only take so much out of that sweet spot, and the rest will probably diminish unless you're an incredible responder, So I'm sure that age was a factor.
Absolutely.
And I think also combine age with the fact that he didn't have extensive hair loss. From every piece of evidence I've ever seen, the only loss I've ever seen was his crown. Not saying that's what was done because Doc can't disclose that. But I remember seeing that his crown seemed to be the weak spot. The hairline never was. Maybe a little tweaking was done. We don't know. He could have gotten away without any tweaking because it was pretty strong to begin with. But I think based on what I've seen over the years, he's one of those few patients, one of those rare patients that maintains a really strong hairline and anterior mid-scalp, yet still has a thinning of the crown area. And considering his age and such minor amounts of loss, strip wasn't necessarily going to be the better option, despite taking the scarring issue out of the equation. I'm sure FUE was just fine because we're not talking 5,000 grafts here.
No, and if you consider, you have to take these patients. I take these patients globally. I look at not only their age, but occupation comes into it, right? Patients who are on film and on screen, television, podcasters, broadcasters, as Spencer likes to say, these patients earn a living and make a living through using the use of their appearance, and that does factor in. And so for someone like John Cena, actors, TV personalities, you have to consider that maybe one day they're going to be asked to play a role where shorter hair is required or needed. And so that can play into it.
Well, and actors have been in that situation. Have had FUT surgery, such as Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
When you look at him on the movie, I'm trying to remember the name of it. He played a Marine.
Yeah.
And his head was shaved, and you can see the strip scar in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some tricky camera angles to minimize the impact of that as much as possible.
and I believe, is it Steve Carell that I saw the linear scar strip on?
May have been.
Yeah.
I think so.
I was going to call him Michael Scott, but
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I've been in a situation where I've had actors come to me and ask me the difference, and even if they're actors, sometimes they are interested in FET,
yeah.
and they're willing to deal with the potential issues, and I think that I find that those actors or those people are the ones that are more established in their careers. They're not trying to make it. They've already, as they say, made it, and it's not so much of a concern for them.
I suppose that John, wouldn't have talked much about it in his consultation, or if he did, he wouldn't be able to tell us. But I do wonder, what is the impact of hair loss and restoration in somebody like an actor or a wrestler or a media personality? Because you probably knew a lot about that, especially Dr. Ken.
Well, he said publicly,
he talked about it.
The People magazine article, that it literally changed the course of his life. And that if he had known the process was so simple and could be so successful and life-changing, he would have done it 10 years ago. So and that's one of the beautiful things about hair restoration surgery. It can be absolutely transformational for some people. It brings a lot of happiness to a lot of people. But those were his words that he used very publicly, and he's expressed similar sentiments to me privately in our text messages.
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Listen,
I'll
take one more quick question, and then we're going to take another call. Go ahead.
I was going to ask about sort of the
patient would have to be at least 55, 60 years of age and have a very minimal amount of hair loss.
There's something ironic and hilarious about that.
Well, not juvenile hairline. I'm thinking, Norwood one, where if we're going to restore it to, typically with guys, my typical patient is in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they have hair loss. And hair loss, because it has no cure, I have to kind of, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the hairlines have to be timeless and look good forever. And so I would never do a juvenile hairline like a 17, 18-year-old has, but a young adult, because the hairline progresses from a juvenile hairline, when you're 17, 18, in adulthood. Typically, for a Caucasian male, it goes up 1 or 2 centimeters in the midline. It goes up 2 to 4 centimeters, depending on the patient, in the temples. And so, restoring hairlines, to the original low, relatively low hairline is something I would only do in an older man who is committed to lifelong treatment and has a proven track record to that commitment. So, but typically the hairlines are a little more conservative, especially when I get guys in there around 30, 35. I say, this has got to look good when you're 95, and so the hair needs to, in my opinion, the results of a hair transplant need to look like the hair has always been there, and not like somebody like me put it back there. And so that and it has to look that way throughout the remainder of the patient's life. So that's kind of the trick of creating these timeless hairlines that are going to look good throughout the patient's life. So creating really low hairlines is not something I think that is commonly done, and certainly, to answer your question fully, never technically a juvenile hairline. But interesting question.
John,
never been asked that.
John Cena had a very strong hairline well into his adult life, so it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Brother, listen, thank you for the call.
Appreciate you. Thank you for the questions.
We're going to take another call. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
888-659-3727. I'm like feverishly trying to work on this audio problem, and I cannot find the problem, people. So just deal with it. We'll figure it out. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer. Hey, Joe. It's AJ. I spoke with you
What's
guys
up, AJ?
like 2 years ago.
Hey, AJ, what's going on?
But I doubt you remember, but maybe you do. I was calling from New York. And 3 years ago, I was trying out topical dutasteride, and I just want to give you some feedback.
Sure.
Similar to Joe's experience, using the topical dutasteride, my face bloated. And
Wait a
then
second.
I tried
Are you
using
saying that
oral-
Joe's got a puffy face?
No. Like, no, he talked about how he tried oral dutasteride, and he was saying I thought I put on some weight.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Or at least looked like I did. What's that?
Yeah, exactly. That was my experience too. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I was looking at pictures. I'm like, why do I look bloated? And I got off the topical dutasteride, which, by the way, didn't work for me. And my face went back to normal.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience. I noticed no difference after 2 years of continuous use oral dutasteride, and I got the puffy face.
Yeah. So
sure.
I got the bloated face, so the puffy face from the topical dutasteride, and then I went to the oral. But with the oral, I got some testicular pain. So I did talk to my primary care physician, and he said, like, you're one of those few people that get side effects from the medication. So I wanted to share that.
Okay. I don't hear that side effect a lot. Like the experience I had seems to be
it's
rare. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I feel validated. Thank you.
So
AJ, how is your hair loss doing now?
Good. So I will share my history, and that is I have aggressive hair loss. I started losing it when I was 23. I'm now 43. I was very fortunate that I was put on finasteride at age 24, and that stopped the hair loss, but it didn't stop it completely. A couple years later, I got on topical minoxidil. That then helped regrow some more hair, but then after a few years, it started falling out again, and I lost my hairline, and it just didn't look good, even though I still had hair. Eventually, around age 36, I had my first hair transplant, and that was amazing. It looked spectacular. But then for some reason, about 4 years in, I felt some of the hair started falling out. And so I had a second one, and then I had a third one, and my hair most people say looks spectacular, but I'm still dealing with like some thinning down the middle. Fortunately, I still have unbelievable amount of donor hair.
Can you talk? I may have fixed it.
Well, that's good. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Maybe
So I just want just kind of share my experience with people. I also believe that the red light therapy works.
Yeah.
I've always believed that it works, but what I've heard is it's got to hit the follicle. It's got to hit the scalp.
Yeah, it's got to hit the skin
And that's the
in the
challenge.
area of the hair loss. So if for patients with, a decent amount of hair, I tell them have a little bottle full of water, like a spray bottle, spritz the hair down, and comb. Suppose you have hair loss along the frontal hairline, comb that hair back, because the hairs themselves will block that laser energy. The laser energy needs to hit the skin around where the hairs are and stimulate the skin directly. But the hairs do block it. But yeah, good for you for recognizing that and moving the hair out of the way. How many times a week are you using the laser cap?
Well, to be honest, I've been tempted to use it, but then I was like, once I get started, I got to keep at it, and I'm just, I'm like, is it worth it?
Can I just stop you? Can I just make a point about that?
Sure, go for it. Yep.
All right. So I hear from patients about, they say, well, once you start it, you can't stop it. I hear that about topical minoxidil. I hear that about the laser cap. And I just want to make a point for the audience. Hair, there's a great analogy that I use that helps patients understand the logic behind that and why they may want to rethink that. Hair loss has a lot of similarities with a phenomenon we're all very familiar with, and that is dental decay, right? They're both incurable phenomenon, progressive in nature, with you for life, and require daily little treatments and activities to try to prevent the progression of this phenomenon. So when you say, once you use the laser cap, you can't stop using it, imagine if you applied that logic to your toothbrush, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to start using
Yeah.
that toothbrush because once you start brushing your teeth, if you stop, you're going to get cavities and your teeth will fall out. Well, right.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So I think that, but unlike now, there's a difference though, because I think that while we're not going to cure dental decay, we're going to need to physically get the plaque off the teeth with the brushes and the flossing and the cleanings. But with hair loss, there are continued regenerative medicine breakthroughs that are happening and going to be happening over the next indefinitely until we come up with a solution for hair loss. And I do think certainly within I guess, I'm guessing somewhere in the range of 5 to 20 years. It's pretty generous, but somewhere in there's going to be a significant regenerative medicine breakthrough that's going to be a situation where you use this as yet to be invented product, or go to a doctor like me or any doctor offering the treatment, and maybe it becomes like a dental cleaning scenario where you go and get the treatment twice a year, and it prevents future hair loss for 98% of guys with male pattern hair. There's something like that is coming where we can stop with the medications and the laser caps. So I think the change is coming, but I just want to point out that I would not hesitate to start using treatments that have been proven to be effective because of the fact that, well, if I stop the treatment, the problem recurs, because it's exactly like that with our toothbrushes, and really no one questions brushing their teeth.
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out, though.
Yeah. Well, you make a great analogy there, and I got to reconsider using the red light therapy.
But isn't it like it's like with any medication for your hair loss? I mean, you got to stick to it.
Yeah.
People ask me, "Are you still on finasteride?" Like, I've been on for 31 years.
Yeah.
I can't stop it.
Yeah.
And any treatment that you can stop and not have to worry about any sort of regression is not a treatment anymore. It's a cure.
Excellent point. Yeah, like antibiotics for an infection, right?
There you go. Same difference.
Some sort of wound infection, you take the antibiotics 10 days. Wound infection gone. Stop taking the medication. That's a great point, Joe.
Thank you.
One other thing that I want to add is, I've been taking the finasteride since I was 23.
Yeah.
And most people look at me and they think I'm like under 30.
Well, hair is magical like that.
I've heard.
I have to say, I know what you're about to ask, and I have to tell you that I think there is some interesting phenomenon, and I've read stuff online where it really kind of helps to slow the skin aging process. I don't know if that's true, but I've been on it for 31. I've been on it for 31 years, and my skin hasn't fallen off my face yet, and I'm almost 61.
Because you look, I'm not just saying this, but
you are a little bit.
No, I'm not.
All right.
I'm not trying to make up for that comment earlier. But you look, for remarkable, because I see guys your age all the time, right, in consultation. And I'm looking above the camera because that's Spencer's right there.
Yeah.
And I see guys in consultation every day, and guys, my age, your age, you look remarkably young for 61 years, doesn't he?
Well, I told Ken to say that, by the way.
I've been working with him for 15 years now. I can't tell the difference at this point. So
What'd you say, Joe?
I said I've been working you 15 years, so I can't tell if you look young or not.
Listen, whatever it is.
Of course he does.
No, but to me, it's not even about looking younger than I am. It's about as everyone talks about anti-aging, I think
it's about not looking like you've fallen apart.
Yeah, but I think the real thing is not about the whole mantra and the whole biohacking world. I mean, I don't like the whole anti-aging discussion. It's more like I think people age themselves more rapidly than they need to by their lifestyles.
Yes.
So I kind of think that, you look at Ken's physique now, and, when people start to take care of themselves, you're basically just kind of getting back to where you should be by not being inflamed all the time, not being bloated. I haven't stopped drinking completely, but whatever. Not getting loaded, not smoking cigarettes, all that stuff. I mean, let's face it. I think about when my dad looked pretty young for his age, and he did everything. But most people, say in the 70s, who were in their 50s, like 1970s or 80s in their 50s, they were done.
Yeah.
It was over. Game over.
everyone was smoking cigarettes. They were drinking a lot more than, I mean,
Yeah.
drinking is falling out of fashion, as I understand it. And I think people are becoming more aware of sunscreen, right? The sun, and then ultra-processed foods. You know, a lot of it comes down to genetics, but you can optimize your own genetics by just. You know,
But I've been
doing
out
the right thing.
playing basketball, laying in the sun, with my pool. Though I'm saying I'm in the sun. I'm not super tan or anything, but I was, especially when I, was out in Calabasas and I had, this crazy backyard with the pool and all that stuff. I'd be out there all day.
Yeah.
I'd be working out there. I think some sun is important, but I definitely see some of these people. I think it's maybe a combination of, like you said, processed food mixed with the sun that really makes you age faster. But listen, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I can guess that if you kind of do the right thing in your life, that's really anti-aging.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
So anyway, back to you, caller. I know what you're talking about. Everyone says how young you look. I told Dave Asprey this when I did an interview with him, and I said I think finasteride is the first real anti-aging medication because you're anti-aging your hair. And he was like, I don't think so. And I look at him. He's already like on his, I don't know if he's on his second facelift, but he already had he just had a major facelift. Skin doesn't look that great. And he's like one of the biggest biohackers. And I don't mean to offend anybody because he's not a young person. But, I don't think he was correct about that. I mean, Ken, do you think that there's if you think about finasteride, you're anti-aging your hair. You're slowing the progression of organ death, essentially. It was the first time we've been able to do that when this drug was put on the market.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that theory before, but I've just been thinking about it since you mentioned it. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, I think it makes sense.
As you described, yeah, it's delayed.
I think it makes sense simply because, what happens when these guys start taking testosterone supplements at an older age? Their skin looks better. They're filled out a bit more. Like they don't look their age unless they're overdoing it.
Dude, I'm keeping that in my back pocket. I have not started TRT. I'm gonna get on the juice
when you
and
take
shave.
finasteride, it's increasing the free testosterone in your body, not helping you create more, but less of it's being converted to DHT. Even if you have less testosterone in your body, as you age, less of that's being converted to DHT. So you have more free-flowing testosterone, which is more than you would have had you not been taking finasteride. So I think that's why there's something to it. Just anecdotally, off the top of my head, seems like a common sense thing.
Well, I will say that every person that I know, my contemporaries who started the drug, I had some very close friends who they waited longer than me. But they got on the drug, and these guys have been on for over 20 years. If you were to see them in person, and some of them really weren't, they're not like major exercises or anything, their face just looks significantly younger than their age, like maybe a decade. So it could be a coincidence, or maybe one day they're going to find out finasteride has more than one, potential anti-aging effect.
Yeah.
All right, caller? Sorry.
I think it does. Yeah.
So you think it does for you?
I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, people are you're at least 10 years younger than you look.
Well, that's
than I am. I'm 10 years younger than my real age.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. I mean, who knows what is happening to our organs, though, right? That's my concern. Exactly. I could be melting inside.
But,
All right, brother. Listen, thank you so much for the call. Do you have another question?
All right. No, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye.
Guys, we have some lines open. We have a few more minutes left for the broadcast. We started late. 888-659-3727. I'm going to try to salvage the sound of this program. I want to apologize for everybody for being, can we use the word now? I think we're allowed to. Retarded. I think we're allowed. Yeah, we're allowed to use it again.
Yeah.
Is it really an IT guy fault? I mean,
I'm the IT guy. Okay, but the problem is sometimes I have problems with my software. So I have a guy in New York. His name is Suncast, and
his name is Suncast.
Yeah, we can't give his real name out. He's in Detroit.
Detail, baby.
Yeah, I will call him up, and I'll give him access to my computer, and he will fix any issues with my software that I can't seem to handle.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, so you mean you set up all these wires?
Yeah, I do all this stuff. Yeah, but I come from old school radio, so I know how to do all the analog stuff.
Okay, all right.
If you wanted me to broadcast and throw this up on satellite right now, I can make that happen.
Okay. Well, no, that makes more sense because as I mentioned, if you're just watching this for the first time, there's Spencer's right on the other side of this camera. So we've got this room here, the studio. There's two cameras in the middle. They're facing opposite directions, and so Spencer is catty corner from me in this room, and I'm looking at his desk, and there are 50 different wires coming out of all these different machines, and they're kind of all going all over.
So I want you to try to picture this.
Really complicated looking.
2009. No one was able to stream.
Yeah.
Okay, live, and no one was able to take calls live. I took the radio aspect of things and hooked up with the guys from Queen's Network, Andrew Zarian, Suncast, and they taught me how to do the digital aspect and video, and then put that out there to the masses.
Yeah.
But it's still so complicated to make it happen. Now, if we wanted to use a very simple process, cheaper software, not this type of setup, it wouldn't have failed like this.
Well, I want to know what Joe, what is your setup like?
It's much simpler.
Yeah.
Tell me.
It's
And guys, hold on. We will take your calls in unless Joe is verbose now, we'll take your calls in like a minute. Go ahead.
No, my setup is simple. I'm not using. I'm dialing. I'm connecting into.
He dials
Spencer's
into my
server.
software. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have the same software, but I got tired.
It's complicated,
of it.
right?
Yeah, it's a real pain in the ass. So
Not for
after
old
10
people.
years, I ditched it, and I just use the call-in feature, as I think you've done before, Ken, and it works fine. I mean, it works great. If there's any hiccups, we can now blame Spencer for all of it.
No, what I could have done is I could have had him call in through vMix Call and connected a camera to his laptop, but I was just like, I'm in the middle of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe next time we do that. But I love coming out here now.
Well, listen, the worst case scenario is you're going to sound a little tinny when I bring up your sound for the audio. People are still going to hear you. You look great, and we had a good time, you know?
Yep.
So let's take some calls. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, caller.
Hello, it's Graham from Melbourne, Australia. Can you hear me?
Graham, what's happening, man? You know what I love? That's the one thing I like about the internet is we get calls from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm paying for it, though. You're calling me toll free, right?
Yes.
Hate that, Graham. Okay, go ahead.
Right, I've got a quick question for you. I want to make it quick so you can get some other callers. As you know, I'm going in for my crown in July. And one question I've never heard anyone ask, I've got sleep apnea and wear a CPAP mask most nights when I sleep.
That's pretty sexy. Go ahead.
Will that affect the surgery after the settling down period? Should I have any problem?
That's a really good question.
Dr. Ken,
That's a great
answer
question.
that?
Well, you're going to be sleeping almost certainly in a recline. You should be sleeping in a reclined position. You're not going to be sleeping flat for at least the first 4 nights after the surgery. So if you have a recliner, in America we have these lazy boy chairs. It's got the big sort of chair with an ottoman. You want the level of your head above the level of your heart in a vertical gravitational sense, because that will speed any of the swelling created with the surgery to be sped quickly as possible back into the vascular systems. And so the swelling is going to accumulate in the scalp. It needs to get back into the blood vessels, and the channels to do that are in the neck. So whether we're talking about your crown, most of that swelling will go down the back of your scalp. But if patients are having, if other patients say are having some frontal hairline work done, that swelling is going to kind of physically percolate through the face for the first 4 days, essentially. And so in a seated position, you should be less likely to have obstructions and apneas and actual pauses in breathing following the procedure. I would let your surgeon know that you use a mask and that you have sleep apnea. That may alter his or her approach to sedation during the procedure. That may alter his or her approach to how much pain medication and how it's prescribed in the post-operative period. If the strap is going to be covering and going right across the the recipient area of the transplant, then you're going to want to wait until at least day number 5 to put that on. The day of your operation is day 0. So if it's on a random Monday, Monday is day 0. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be post-op day 5. So on Saturday night, you could feel comfortable using that mask, and conceivably even on post-op day 4. But for the first 3 nights, you really don't want to be having a tight strap sitting or rubbing across those follicles, and you should be in a seated position those nights anyway, which tends to cut down on a lot of the severity of the obstruction and the apneas. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, that answers my question. Very good. And I was more thinking the long term of wearing the mask. Is it going to affect anything? But that was a good point you made, because I had a septoplaster done early last year, or midway last year, and because I had sleep apnea and I couldn't wear the CPAP mask, when I woke up I was in intensive care for the night because they were worried with the anaesthetic, the general anaesthetic, that something might happen, so I was in the right place if something did happen. So it was quite a different experience to wake up in intensive care. Yeah. So, but everything worked out fine.
Yeah, it sounds like you have some conservative physicians that want to do the right thing for you. In terms of the long term, no. I mean, unless the straps are very tight, which I don't think that wouldn't be comfortable. But if you're just wearing the strap at night, I don't think that's going to present a problem to the transplanted follicles or the native hair. What do you guys think, Joe?
Well, the thing, I don't know a lot about these machines, but like you said, as long as it's not tight, I don't see why it would cause any issues.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean that's a great question. I've never heard that question before. I never even thought about it, but I know that those masks are like, you're like Darth Vader at night with this thing over there.
All right, let's talk about sleep apnea briefly.
Yeah.
It's that's right up my field, as an ear, nose, and throat surgeon.
Yeah.
The reality is it's caused by, when you breathe in, there's a negative pressure created in the oral pharynx and in the throat. And it can cause, it's like sucking, imagine having a blow-up balloon and to be the segue between 2 straws, trying to suck liquid through that setup, the walls of the balloon would collapse in on themselves. Same thing sort of happens in in the upper airway in the back of the throat. And so it's really a problem. There are surgeries that you can do, like the palataloplasty, where they remove some of the soft palate, but that really is not a cure. The gold standard, that term keeps coming up today, but the gold standard for the treatment of obstructive sleep apnea is to use one of those masks to provide, it's called a CPAP mask, a continuous positive airway pressure, CPAP. And it's kind of like it stents open the airway with air pressure so that patients can breathe comfortably throughout the night. They're not obstructing, kind of snoring, sort of choking, and then having an apnea, which is a complete pause in breathing, which really disrupts how well the patients will sleep, and over the long term is not good for, it can cause mood disorders and the like. So and it can cause, and is related to obesity and I believe diabetes as well, if I'm not mistaken. But sleep is very important.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Graham. I mean, you look like a thin guy from what I see online. I have no idea. I've never seen you from the waist down. So you could have like a huge, Dominican butt or something. But can I say that? Can I say that, Joe?
You already have, so it's too late.
So people of all weights, it's not really exactly correlated with weight. So there are people who, Spencer, like you and I, our habitus, who definitely have. It's more about the anatomy of the upper airway, which can be exacerbated with excess weight.
Now, can that be corrected either by wearing something, some sort of orthodontics work, or something that could kind of open up the airway?
Occasionally, in select cases where there are a number of anatomical factors that come into play. If it happens to be a retrognathic jaw, that can help. But again, typically it depends. A sleep study will
So I'm assuming a retronanchic jaw would be a recessed jaw or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that can be corrected surgically or with an appliance, I believe. It's been a minute since I was in that world, but
Yeah.
But the gold standard, is the CPAP mask.
Interesting. Well, Graham, I hope that answered your question, brother. What else? So when are you having the surgery?
In July, early July.
Okay.
Well, listen, brother.
It'll be
I mean, that's
2,000 to 3,000 grafts just in the crown. That's it. I'm not doing anything more, and we'll see what happens
well,
from there.
just to give some history
My first procedure.
for Dr. Anderson and for our listeners, Graham is a guy that actually was. I don't want to say you were Formica bald, but you were pretty far gone.
No.
You're in your early 50s, right?
Yes.
And he grew a significant amount of hair back. He started to use medication late in life, using 1 milligram oral finasteride and I think 2.5 milligrams, correct me if I'm wrong, of oral minoxidil.
Wow.
And you got to see this growth. It's insane. His whole mid-anterior scalp just grew back.
Wow.
So he has a lot of hair to frame his face now. Hairline is still recessed, but he's in his 50s. Looks good. And now he wants to get some crown work.
Hey, I think that's great. There are patients who do respond really well to non-surgical interventions. That's what I was trying with John Cena initially, but fortunately, it didn't. It wasn't quite enough. But I think the non-surgical activities, the medications, and in my opinion, the laser cap, should be a part of every patient who, every male patient who has male pattern hair loss. I think in addition to surgery, if you're even considering surgery.
Yeah, I'm keeping low-dose oral minoxidil in my back pocket. I have not started it yet. They're coming out pretty soon with a different type of what is it? What's the name of the company,
release.
Joe? It's a time-release drug. If I can name the company, but a time-release low-dose oral minoxidil, which is supposed to help mitigate the adverse effects.
I don't know what, but hold on. Why would you use? This is a philosophical question, but if you can get the same efficacy of minoxidil by applying it topically as you do with the oral pill, is it just a matter of compliance or convenience then that you would choose the oral?
I think some people just can't. They don't have the enzyme to convert the prodrug minoxidil into minoxidil sulfate or sulfate.
Yeah.
So that's why about 60% of the guys don't do as well. 40% of the guys don't do as well as they would hope to because it's not really converting. So when you take it orally, it's working for everybody. But the reality is you're having a greater incidence of adverse side effects. To me, as a non-physician, but someone who I think has some common sense, I would just titrate the medication, take very small doses throughout the day, maybe, so you don't have the surge of the drug that can cause the periorbital edema, pericardial effusion, and other issues, and kind of titrate that way. But instead of taking the time release, just take it yourself. Release it throughout the day. What is that?
Psoriasis exasperation.
Yeah, so
eyebrows are peeling.
Your psoriasis was exacerbated by
or eyelids.
You have Joe has peeling eye. He's my guinea pig. He said, "I'm going to start
eyelids
this
that
drug.
are peeling, Doc."
He's like, "I'm going to start this drug," and I'm like, "I'm going to let you kill yourself first."
Yeah.
Are you, Joe? Are you serious? You had psoriasis on your eyelids?
Yeah.
Is that painful?
No. It's mild, but it's there, and it's annoying as shit.
Well.
But his hair looks great.
But my hair looks great.
Well, hopefully you're controlling that with a topical steroid.
It's difficult when it's your eyelids because then it gets in your eyes.
Have you tried a Medrol? Dose pack?
No, I haven't. And honestly, it's like I stopped taking the medication for a solid week.
Yeah.
And it's not cleared up 100%, but I've reintroduced a quarter tab.
Okay. He was very stubborn. He asked me about it, and I said, "Listen, brother, again, I'm not a doctor, so if you're listening, I'm not giving medical advice." I'm like, don't worry about what people are taking and what doctors are prescribing. Start slow, titrate slowly, see how you react. Some medication is better than none. Yep. Either way, you're probably going to go through somewhat of a shed, but you could actually go through less of an effluvium with less medication in your body. It's possible. So why not start slow? But no, Joe had to start with the big guns as usual.
No, it wasn't the big guns because the logic is it's already low dose at 2.5 because a normal dosage back in the day was 20 milligrams.
Yeah,
40
well, that's what they
milligrams.
were selling to bring people's blood pressure down.
In the beginning of the oral minoxidil usage for hair loss was 10, which eventually went down to 5 and now 2.5. So it's like it is a low dose. It's already low dose.
Conservatively starting patients at 1.25. I mean,
it's and that's actually what I started doing. I had the 2.5 dosage, but then I was cracking them in half, and I started out with 1.25. I went to 2.5 for like half a week and decided, no, it's too early. So I maintained with 1.25 until my face started falling off, and decided to go down to half of or a quarter of a tablet. And here we are. It's reduced. It's manageable. I can live with it, but I still don't like it.
How are the results hair wise? You don't talk much about it.
Well,
hold on. Are you still holding on, caller? I'm so sorry.
I'm still on. I was just listening to you.
Oh, Grant. Well, listen. At least you could hear Ken now.
Yeah.
I can hear. I can.
No. You could hear. You could hear. Go ahead.
On the call, everyone's coming through perfectly.
Yeah, on the call, everyone can hear you perfectly. Somehow I set that up properly. You know why? Because this is not digital. It's old school. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
One last thing I want to talk about the sleep apnea. It's more for the people out there. If I don't wear the CPAP for 3 or 4 days, if I walk up a set of stairs, I feel like the lactic acid in my legs hurting. I feel a lot more tired, even though I'm walking around normally. And the thing is, when I was speaking to them, they said because you're not getting enough oxygen in your blood when you're sleeping because you're not breathing. Because I would stop sleep apnea 36 times an hour, and that's for over 20 seconds at a time. So if you calculate that by 6 or 7 hours sleep, it's a lot of oxygen you're missing out on.
I have a question. Speaking about sleep apnea.
Well, thank you for sharing that. You know, for our listeners out there who may be struggling with obstructive sleep apnea, I think it's a major quality of life improvement to get treatment and use the CPAP device. But thank you for sharing that, bud.
Graham, we're going to let you go, but man, always great hearing from you. And good luck.
Thank you so much.
All right,
guys.
call before you get the surgery. You could still cancel.
I know. I'm fearing you, Spencer.
You know, it's always going to be there.
You're always going to be there too, Spencer. That's the thing.
Oh, God forbid. I mean, I want to be here, but I don't know if I want to continue to do this. I was actually just telling Dr. Anderson that I'm kind of going to go full in again anyway, which is, I don't know why I'm doing it, but whatever.
No, you're great. Thank you so much.
This is fun.
I do. I love it.
But normally I'm alone in my underpants. You know? All right, Graham.
Good hearing from you, Graham.
Thank you so much,
Take
guys.
Care. Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Graham.
We have time for another call.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Dr. Ken. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see if this guy doesn't hang up. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, Spencer. How are you?
Good. Who's this?
This is Michael from Miami, Florida.
Michael from Miami. What's happening,
Michael?
brother?
How are we doing? About 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with Lincoln planopilaris, and they gave me medications, and I'm also on oral finasteride, oral minoxidil, and they told me that I was going to experience a little bit of shedding, so they told me don't worry. And my question to Dr. Anderson is why the shedding occurs?
Well, that's a great question. And so tell me about the minoxidil that you're on, how much and how you're taking it?
I'm taking it orally, and it's, I believe, 2.75.
Okay. Minoxidil causes, they're not exactly sure what the precise mechanism of action of minoxidil is. But it does has been known to prolong the anagen cycle, and it can hasten the hair follicle cycles along. And so what I tell patients is that yes, shedding is fairly common, but that it's self-limited, and those hairs that are shed will be coming back, but it can be kind of an irritating problem for up to, I believe, 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. So that's not a reason to avoid using the medication, though. And if you think about it, it's almost an indication that it is doing something, because it is altering the timing of the hair follicle cycles on your scalp. And you're noticing that initially, it's not great news, but eventually I think that lack of great news will lead to better results in the long run.
Right. And I'm also taking something orally called naltrexone. It's for this carrying alopecia, which is lichen planopilaris.
Yeah.
So you're taking low dose naltrexone, or whatever it's called?
Yes, low dose. So I think
that's relatively new in this game. I don't know if you prescribe it, Ken.
No, I'm not a man's got, as Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. And I'm not a dermatologist, and I don't treat complicated cases of scarring alopecia. So I work with dermatologists. I'm just a simple country facial plastic surgeon trying to make it in the big city. And so no, I'm not using...
Well, there's been guys in that chair who have made believe they knew what they were talking about, and they won't even admit that they don't know anything.
Come on, no, I'm not a dermatologist, but so no,
and
I work with them.
I don't like those guys. They happen to be in the Atlanta tri-state area, the Atlanta area,
No,
but
it's not tri-state.
yeah, but I'm just busting this guy's balls.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not. Dermatology is a complex specialty, and so I work with dermatologists to whom I would refer cases of LPP.
Yeah. So how are you doing, by the way? I don't know if I wasn't listening because I'm still trying to maybe by the end of the show get Ken's sound up, but are you feeling that you're doing better on the medication, or are there any changes, anything positive?
Yes, I don't have itching anymore. I'm feeling good. I feel that hair has improved, but I think that I'm also experiencing a little bit of the shedding, which I know is part of the process. So I think I just need to be patient and just wait at least for 4 more months so I can see more of the regrowth.
So they prescribe both medications at the same time,
and that's
start taking both
that's
at the
the
same
thing.
time?
I mean, the fact that when you have this type of scarring alopecia, for some people, and correct me if I'm wrong, it can go into spontaneous remission. But at the very least, you want to be able to stop or slow the progression. Hopefully, stop the progression, and then you can kind of work back on, maintaining that and maybe regrowing some hair. A lot of people don't jump on it early enough, and by the time they seek help, they're screwed. And that happens a lot. You probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, but you probably have patients that come into your practice who may be suffering from this. They would have gone to somebody else down the block or some other place, and they would have had surgery.
Oh
yeah.
All the time. And it's, it used to bother me, but, it's a wild world out there. But, yeah, if I even suspect it, and, you get pretty, after years of doing this, I can just kind of look at it. If it's not how I think it should look, my threshold to recommend and perform a biopsy is low. And so we do a lot of biopsies at my center in Atlanta, 4 millimeter biopsy. It's just, it's a 15-minute appointment. I work with a dermatopathologist who is fellowship trained and specializes specifically in hair loss disorders. So he and I work with these patients to get an accurate diagnosis for patients who may have, scarring alopecia. And if there's nothing there, great. We can have, peace of mind knowing the coast is clear for a transplant. But if there is something there that has to be factored into the surgical plan.
Well, here's the reality. You are the anomaly, one of the anomalies in this field. Obviously, you're part of the IHS, so you're incredibly well qualified at what you do besides your board certifications. But the truth is, whether it's here in Los Angeles or in New York or Miami, no matter, even the best well-known plastic surgeons who are doing hair transplants in a box in the back of their practices, they don't even know what they're looking at. So many guys are having hair transplants, and I'm not talking about going to Turkey. I'm talking about right here,
I believe
who have scarring alopecia, and they're screwed. It's a pretty, relatively recent phenomenon, I would say.
I'd be curious to know, caller, what started the what kind of symptoms were you having? What brought you to your doctor to begin with regarding your situation?
Well, I'm 32 right now. I noticed hair thinning like late 20s, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And also I had a lot of itching in the same time. So they did a biopsy and they found that. And also I have a androgenetic alopecia. So it's also in my family. But finasteride has been helping a lot with stopping the progression. And the minoxidil as well has been helping for the growth. But did
you have some sort of scalp trauma? Like did you have some sort of cut on your head, or did you get hit in the head somehow? And I'm not trying to be funny here, but like, did you have some sort of physical trauma to your scalp?
I've been asking Joe that for years, by the way.
Yeah.
Not that I remember.
Okay.
not that I remember, but it was weird because all of a sudden, like, I started experiencing a lot of like itchiness and it felt like burning itchiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it was falling in the same time. So that's what I remember what happened, but I don't remember.
That I want to point out to viewers, and that is a lot of people think, if they had scarring alopecia, well, then that's their diagnosis. It's not an either or. Patients can have androgenetic alopecia, which is male pattern hair loss, and they can also have, at the same time, coexisting scarring alopecia. It can be, you can have more than one type of hair loss, just as our caller right now does, at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that's what it said in the report, that I have androgenetic alopecia and the Lincoln planopilaris.
Okay.
Well, brother, listen, go ahead, continue if you have any more questions.
Yeah, just I mean, I like my hair the way it is. I'm not like bald. I mean, I still have hair, and I know that the medications are going to help me. Maybe, they told me that the scarring got to stop if I want to get like a procedure like in my hairline. But what if I decide to wait until like I'm like 36, 37? It doesn't matter, right?
To have a hair transplant?
Yes.
Yeah, there is never a problem with waiting. You always get a hair transplant down the line. You should never be in a rush to, as I know, I often say hair transplant should be a last resort. And I know that you say that, and I know that Joe says that. It's not. So there's absolutely no problem with waiting to get a hair transplant.
Look, I've been waiting. I've been waiting for I've been balding for 40 years. So, it's just, I think, we say this all the time. Transplants are always going to be there. Things may evolve by the time you decide to have a transplant. You may not need a transplant in 3 or 4 years or whatever. There may be, I doubt there's going to be any real significant progress with treatments in the next 5 years. I hope so. That would be great. But, right now, if you're happy with what you got, let me tell you something. Hair greed is dangerous. I know so many guys who were happy, they felt comfortable enough with what they had, but they decided they just want to tweak it and make themselves perfect. And then they got fucked up. So
right.
It's a thing.
I will rock the Trump the early years situation with hairspray until I can no longer do it, and then I'll get some work done. That's it.
Sounds good.
All right, brother.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Joe, did you want to, we're done with the calls. I think we did about 2 hours. I don't know, Dr. Anderson, anything else you want to add besides what a great time?
No, it's been a great day. I always enjoy visiting your studio here and talking to the callers and just catching up with Joe. You know.
Yeah. And I think at the very least, even with the sound problems, we can make some content out of this.
I think it added to the content of the show, actually.
It certainly made people listen harder. What? What?
That's true. I actually had my guy, Andrew Zarian, is back home, and he just basically, logged into my computer to take a look.
Oh, is he watching?
Well, he was watching, but I asked him to log into the computer to take a look and see what we can do to fix this.
You're watching. What's up, Andrew? How you doing, bud?
It definitely has to. It has to do with the connection of the audio to the digital process, which I didn't get right. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Okay.
Look, just bending down to try to get this done, Joe, with my tendons, it's ridiculous.
I'm
working there for hours trying to figure this thing out.
I'm right there with you, buddy. I feel it.
All right. Dr. Anderson, why don't you give out your social media? That's what people do now.
Oh, the social media?
Yeah. Is it Anderson Hair? What is it?
It's Anderson Center for Hair on Facebook, and
I'm sure
it's the same on Instagram.
It's probably at Anderson. I mean, I could look at it right now because you know what? Yeah. We have little computers.
Yeah. My personal Instagram is Ken Anderson MD.
Don't give that out. I'm just kidding.
Website. Everything's on the website, though. AtlantaHairSurgeon.com. AtlantaHairSurgeon.com. You're going to find. I personally oversee everything that goes on that website, wrote most of it, and it's replete with accurate information.
Yeah, and it's actually, I mean, the one that I have that I'm connected to is at Ken Anderson MD, which you already gave away. So
it's Anderson. Oh, we found it. What is it?
It's at Anderson Center for Hair, as it should be.
Yeah. Anderson Center for Hair.
Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
But you know what's easier for everybody? Just go to iahrs.org.
Yep.
Period. You can connect to Dr. Anderson through that, see his website.
I'm a proud member of that organization, and I do have a nice profile there, as with a number of other esteemed colleagues. Respectable, esteemed.
Now, I don't want you to freak out when I say this, but we removed some people recently. We're not going to remove you, don't worry. And we kind of did dialysis because I am going to be accepting new guys. You know that we get like applications, and Joe's seen them. It's insane the amount of applications we got. There's a lot of young guys who get no podium time. They've never gotten a chance. They're doing really good work, but because they're not part of the politics, they're not getting any love. And we want, listen, I feel very fortunate. I started so young in this field, and I'm still young enough where I can see kind of the transition of the old guard into the new guard, into the guys that understand what we do. We're going to our 25th year in the IHRS. Yeah. So we're basically going to be expanding it. It's not going to be a lot of people, but it's going to be bigger than it has been for a long time.
Okay.
And
I think my only comment there for both you guys is that, this is a surgical field, a surgical subspecialty, technically, of facial plastic and reconstructive surgery. And because of that, we've got two methods. We've got the FUE and the FUT. I think members of the organizations that are being, the IHRS, for instance, these guys should be able to not only do the FUE, but they should be experts and offer, to patients linear strip, FUT, the gold standard.
That would be great.
And both of them, because I tell patients, if you find a doctor, he's doing only one or the other, to me, professionally, that's a red flag, because that's part of the specialty of hair restoration.
I tell people all the time, my biggest regret was waking up to that call from Ray Woods in 1999 and pushing this ancillary procedure that you guys are all doing now, and you were one of the first. And a couple of guys, entrepreneurial guys, got a chokehold on FUE and decided to make it the standard of care. Now, they didn't necessarily make it the standard of care. They put it out there as scarless surgery, and consumer demand made it the standard of care. This is one of the few specialties, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm being a jerk, but one of the few specialties where the consumer dictates the medicine of this procedure. It's what as far as graft counts in general, that's kind of being put out there on social media, and the fact that FUE is the gold standard. FUE would not be the gold standard if it wasn't for consumer demand. And that consumer demand would not be out there if it wasn't for the entrepreneurial aspects of this field.
Well, but I think it's not only the consumer demand, it's matched by the fact that the barrier to entry to this specialty is almost non-existent, and the fact that FUE surgery is not, I mean, let's face it, it's not really technically nearly as demanding as linear strip FUT surgery. And so if a doctor who specializes in family medicine or something, or in a non-surgically trained doctor to get into specialty, I think it's a lot less intimidating to only offer FUE than actually having to, make incisions on the scalp and reapproximate scalp tissue.
But who do you think made that happen? It was the guys that went out there and started banging their chests and saying that this is a better procedure, this is the gold standard, this is scarless, and then there were like a bunch of people that were able to.
The instrument companies,
well, NeoGraft changed the game and made it into a turnkey procedure. 2008, I did a live show with Alan Bauman, and it was the NeoGraft warning. He was using the NeoGraft at the time. But the warning we wanted to put out there was that this is starting to become a procedure where people are just buying this turnkey device. They are hiring technicians to come in and do the surgery. And, it's really becoming a mess. The president of the ISHRS at the time called a live show. I'm not going to mention who it was. And he said, this is really great. What can we do as the ISHRS to maybe protect patients from this and to educate patients? I gave him a list of things, and we could have stopped it. Yeah. He came back to me and said, I spoke to the Board of Governors. Everyone's concerned about being sued by the company. So we're just going to let you do your thing, Spencer.
Wow.
And the rest is history. That's how the industry works. That's how the industry works, brother. So what was I saying, Joe? Oh, so the truth of the matter is these.
You're the IHRS.
Yes. But it's not like expanding it. Listen, I could take what Joe knows. I could take on 1,000 members and it would still appear to be selective in this field. But that'll never happen. It'll be still a very short, small group of people, but we're expanding it with some younger guys who I think really deserve to be a part of it. And for the same reasons why you deserve to be a part of it. They're ethical doctors. A lot of them are doing FET. But to answer your question about that, I think that I would wish that all the great doctors out there were offering FET. I know I said this, but the market doesn't demand it. So a lot of these younger guys learned how to do FUE. They also learned how to do FUT, but they realized there's no call for FUT. So they have somewhat of the infrastructure to perform FUT, but they're only doing maybe one every couple of months.
Well, so all women, they're doing women with FUE?
Some of them are doing women with FUE, but no one in the IHRS yet. Okay. No one in the IHRS.
Well, good. I look forward to meeting these young ethical doctors.
You've already met some of them, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. But that's actually a good question. I don't want to say it. Well, I'll tell you what. There's one guy in the UK who does FUE only. He's been part of the IHRS for a while. He called the show. He had a couple of drinks in him, too. So I think he was very honest. Yeah. Yes. And he said that even though he only does FUE, that FUT is the gold standard.
Well, hats off to that gentleman.
Yeah. So
and he'll actually pass patients off to FUT.
And he passes
docs.
patients on. Yeah.
Yeah. If he feels FET is better for them. Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah. So
he is solid.
As you know, Ken, we have to work within the parameters that we're given, and sadly, this is a very entrepreneurial field. Yeah. So my whole goal is to give these kids a fighting chance. That's it. Yeah. That's the best we can do.
It's a noble mission, man. I think both of you have done a great number of men a positive thing, by guiding them, and I know that your efforts, have paid off, and that people, are better off because of the activities that you're both doing in this industry. And thank you.
Thank you.
Well, tell that to Gary Linkoff. All right, Joe. Listen, we're gonna go. That's a private joke. I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah.
Joe's Instagram is Joe Tillman Official, right? At Joe Tillman Official.
It is.
Mine is actually Spencer Kobren. I'm sorry, guys, that I haven't spent a lot of time on Instagram lately. I know I have a lot of followers. That's great. And we're going to grow it even more. I have a lot of content in the can. But I got to tell you, it's a lot of work, and I don't love doing it. I'm just being honest. I'm doing it for you guys.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's for sure.
Well, I like being able to just talk to the camera, but I don't like the whole idea that you have to have a hook and jump around. I mean, I'm going to be 61, Joe. It's ludicrous.
I've never heard that before.
That I'm going to be 61?
That you're going to be
any age.
X years old, any age.
I know. I like full disclosure. All right, guys, listen, we're going to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Ken Anderson. Center for Hair, accepted IHS member for well over, 15 years? Or something like that?
A hot minute, sir.
A hot minute. And you know what I admire about Dr. Anderson? He was being poisoned by the industry like everybody else about me and about what we do over the years. That's the way that it is. And he's like, you know what? F this. Yeah. This guy's doing good work. I want to be a part of it. So I always admire that.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Joseph, anything else you want to add?
No, I think it's, despite the technical difficulties, it turned out to be a good show. Had some good callers, and of course, great time with Dr. Ken Anderson. Always welcome on the show. Glad to have you here, and look forward to the next time. And look forward to maybe seeing you in May in Atlanta.
Appreciate you, Joe. I look forward to that. I definitely want to make that happen.
Right, all right, Joe, I got to piss. I got to go. All right, guys.
Good stuff.
Until next time, be strong. God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be